Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited about today's workshop, transforming from a victim to a flourisher, addressing microaggressions with identical capital with the Black Doctoral Network. Today we have with us Miss Imra, that's right. And I'm going to give a brief introduction. There will be a survey link at the end of the workshop, and then you can also put your questions in the chat. So Imra is an Ethiopian 7-year PhD candidate in communication and media services at the University of Oregon, where she is a part-time graduate employee. She's also a teaching assistant for graduate studies. She earned all of her higher learning education abroad with 2 master's degrees in media studies from Rose University, South Africa, and politics and international relations from Pondicherry University, India. She was a media lecturer at Addis Ababa University, Ethiopia for 7 years before coming to Eugene in September of 2017. She was also a journalist, an editor in the Ethiopian media and the African content. She was the editor-in-chief of the Sub-Saharan Informer, a regional daily newspaper, and a designated editor of the Highway Africa News Agency in South Africa. She's a media activist who has worked for press freedom and women and girls' rights in Africa. She co-founded and was president of the Ethiopian Media Women's Association and the Secretary General of the African Editors Forum. Her research interests include health communication campaigns, development communication, political communication, global and international communication, and identity formation of marginalized groups such as women, unemployed youth, audience survey of legacy, and new media. Her dissertation projects evaluates the 15-year-old of No Woman Should Die Given Life, Behavioral Change Communications Campaign, a case study of Ethiopia's reaching MDG4 and its probable application to Global South communities and Global North. Imra is married and she's the mother of 2 boys aged 16 and 14. So without further ado, let's welcome our presenter.
Thank you, Tanisha. Am I correct?
Yes, that's good enough.
All right. So I am grateful for this opportunity to talk to you about this topic that has been preoccupying since my arrival in the US in 2017, because as most of us know, microaggression, and especially in the US, is a reality, our day lived experience. And how do we cope with that? We know that it won't go away as easily as we want to, but we have to face it at least on a daily basis. So that's why I kind of came up with this workshop, where I felt that my own lived experience allowed me to be in a better place to actually deal with these forms of aggression. And one way of doing that is to look into the identity capital I carry with myself as a Black person, as a person from Africa, and all that. So I want to share with you what I plan to do. So what I will try to cover today is these 5 topics, which is like we'll talk about. I won't spend too much time on what microaggression is, because as you probably, most of you know what it is, and what are things like what do the microaggression come from, and what are their types, what are the communication strategies. Remember, I am a communicator, so I try to focus into what are those communication strategies that are non-defensive that allows us to shift from being a victim. I mean, to start with, we are all victims, but the fact that we are surviving and flourishing in whichever capacity we are currently going through makes us a flourisher, a survivor, and a champion. So, because the whole idea of microaggression is it puts us in a defensive position, what are the strategies that actually makes us become non-defensive, and in turn which allows us not to be a continued victims of this type of aggression. And then we will try to kind of talk through this, the fourth aspect, like what are our identity capital, what do we mean, and how do we assess our identity and tie it with our well-being. And then we are all people of resilience by the mere fact that we are surviving and the academic environment we operate in. So how do we build our resilience? And one mechanism we can use, or one strategy we can use, is through self-affirmation. So just to recap what is given in the poster about advertising promoting this, it is to equip us with the resilience building tools to practice self-affirmation by recognizing our identity attributes such as race, nationality, language, and culture as a capital. So whenever we look at people of color, we think we are like in the lower ranks of racial hierarchy, but at the same time, there are many instances where our race, the black race, air quotes, is actually an area of really strong identity capital. So we will talk about that. So it's like the way it's about mindsets, how we can actually translate these norms, negative norms that are associated with our race, and consider, instead of considering them as a burden, but rather as a strength. Okay. Okay. I will talk about that. So to just give you an idea of so these are the two things I want to talk about in conjunction together, because microaggression, like I stated earlier, it's a lot, it's negative, it's thrown at us every day. And they can be verbal, non-verbal, insults, slides, put downs, and there are different types of them. Micro assaults, those are intended and sustainable, continued insults against people who are marginalized, like Black people. Micro invalidation is like actually devaluing our opinions and statements that occurs in any kind of situation, setting. And then micro insults are those insults and denigrating terms that are thrown at people of color. So micro affirmation instead looks at giving signals to people like us, value and respect to our identity. You know, like there are so many times while I am a grad student, I have been told with a note of surprise for being good at what I do. Oh, you are so well spoken, or your English is excellent, or somebody even told me when I submitted my term paper saying that, did someone help you write this? things like that. So this happens every day. I am sure you guys also have experienced this in your life every day. And even to talk about all lives matter, that's an instance like how can all lives matter where the lives of Black people are not valued, and they seem not to be to matter. So just to give you some ideas of instances of microaggression. So the harm it does is microaggression is like, things like being talked over. When we ask for assistance, they are belittled. When we give our opinions, they are ignored. When there are events, even with our own social settings and educational setting, we are not invited. Assuming less competence. For example, I am from Ethiopia, so English is not my first language. It's actually my fourth language. So the fact that I have an accent seems to indicate incompetence, which is actually a false narrative, because what I do right now is I'm translating in my mind from the language I speak, Amharic, into English. So kind of like science tells us that people who are bilingual, multilingual are smarter than monolingual people. So things like that. And even, like in African Americans, they have their own language. And when they use that, they were taught as being incompetent or not speaking good English. So it's this idea of being like dismissed. And and these things are also targeted. Microaggression doesn't only happen to Black people, but other marginalized groups. We know that based on gender, based on ability, ageism, and all that. But today our focus is, of course, based on race, because that seems to be the most harmful. Because somebody said, I remember she told me like, oh, at least I can hide if I am gay. There are moments when I can hide I am gay and I will take a breather for that day. But for Black people, it's not something we can cover. It's there to see. So there is no hiding you cannot escape how you look. So while that is the case, that's the reality. I keep on going back to telling my stories whenever I go through this, because really in the academic setting, one of the things, the methodology we use about actually analyzing a phenomena is to look mostly at numbers. That methods such as qualitative methods such as telling stories or telling lived experience are kind of not recognized or valued. But whenever we deal with microaggression, it's always good to talk about what we go through to people who are willing to listen to. And even if they don't want to listen to, that shouldn't allow us to be silenced. The first 2 years I was here, I had a culture shock, and for a long time I thought like, oh, nobody seems to value my inputs or my opinions or my interests. I am not being heard. So what's the point of talking anyhow? So I kind of shut down, and that took a toll on my mental, physical well-being through like those 2 years were the most difficult. But then I had fortunately I went through some, fortunately or unfortunately, I went through some life experience, and I realized that life is too short, and that I have a goal in life. The goal is for me to achieve why I am here, why I came here, and nobody should I shouldn't allow anyone to stop me from achieving my dreams and my goals. So I told myself, okay, right, microaggression is my lived reality. There is no escaping it. I know people don't hear me, but that doesn't mean that I allow them to silence me. So it doesn't matter whether they have heard me or not, but I will start with speaking my truth. So without being defensive, I started like kind of going through what what is called microaffirmations. Like, instead of, how people throw at us, or when we are passionate, or when we are harmed by certain comments and instances of microaggression. Oh, the Black angry woman, right? They throw that in our face. And I started like noticing how I deliver the way I speak, the way I interact with people who don't look like me, and started simple things like using friendly gestures, asking for their opinions, because at the end of the day, they, when they when people tell me like, oh, I don't know about this thing, what's your opinion? At least we can talk about that. And whenever I try to draw, like looking at achievements of others, and then they have to go by. So in a way, through this exercises, what I was trying to do was like create more allies. Um, for the yeah, let's go back to where I was. Yeah. um the node, when I experience the node, it's an instance of micro affirmation from others who look like me. It's like homecoming, right? It's a simple action of that. And one thing I noticed through my experience is, most of the time when we are targets of microaggression, there is always people support. I'm talking about mostly white people. When somebody targets you with some kind of microaggression, let's say in a retail shop or somewhere, and when you speak out, what happens is, like, normally other white people actually gang up on you. They would support each other against you most of the time. While if there are other Black people, they will be silent about it. They won't be involved. Okay, this is an instance where I actually found out. I'll give you an instance where this happened to me. It was at an airport, and I saw it was very crowded. We were waiting for the plane to arrive, and the airport was so crowded, and there wasn't many sitting areas. So I saw an empty seat and walked there to sit. And there is this white person who said, no, 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 that's my husband. And she said, no, that's my husband's. And I said, I really don't care. I'm going to sit there. And then two white men said, "Oh, that's very rude." And then the woman who said that's my husband, she started crying. She was crying, "Oh my God, she's being rude to me. I was politely asking." And the other person comes in, "How dare you do that?" And then I said, "Oh, you are not coming at me. What do you mean?" And I stood up, and she stood right in front of me like this and said, "I'll cut you down." And I said, "Well, try it." And then that's when another person behind me saying like, "Oh, that seat is not reserved." Like when you feel that everyone was ganging up on you and there is a sign of help from someone, and I turned, there was a black woman who was speaking. That seat is not reserved. And I said, "Yeah, it's not reserved." And then the sad thing is, another woman said, "Mind your business." And then she said, "No, no, no, she's my mother." "No, mom, this is my business." And when the other people saw that, they actually kind of withdrew. And this is one of the few instances where I realized that this instances of microaggression become actually violence, racial violence against people like us, when we also don't support each other, when we remain silent. So standing up for each other, saying that, no, what you are saying is right, don't give in, don't give up, to our sisters, would be very helpful during those moments of tension. One of my favorite quotes about racism is by Toni Morrison. She speaks about how the function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. In most places, for example, in Oregon, it's so white. So by the mere fact that people like us are there, it's like we need to justify our presence there. So we have to explain every time. And what it does is it takes away from the labor we need to put to achieve those things we dream of. And it's so unnecessary. Recognizing that and making sure that we are protecting our emotional labor from wasting in those moments of microaggression would be very useful. We can be, and we need to tell ourselves that we need to recognize them and move from that. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, racism will not disappear. It only disappear when it's no longer profitable or psychologically useful, right? And I believe that when it happens, it will be gone, like Toni Morrison said. But till then, people make a lot of money off it. Yeah. So through divisions, through differences, that's how people actually make a lot of money. It makes sense in a way to be racist, to have racism as an identifier. So that is the reality. And the other, I'm sure you know of this poem by Langston Hugh about how what happens to a dream deferred. We either dry up, do we fester like a sore, or does it become like a heavy load, or does it explode? These are the things he asks us, and I guess other people, about the consequence of racism in a way, that we keep on deferring our dreams because of lack of understanding and hatred and all that. So in that sense, while that is the case, but there is this idea that this is more to do with some of the readings. How many of you have heard of spiritual murder?
I
Yeah,
have.
yeah. What
Mhm.
is it?
You said spiritual murder. When
Mm-hmm.
somebody tries to, so what I know of it is when somebody tries to kill your spirit, um, not so much in like a religious aspect, but to kill your zest, your zeal, your drive.
Yeah,
They sort of want to amputate you and put you down. I've heard it used in that sense.
yeah, exactly. But at the same time, one thing, despite all that assault attack on our spirit, on our soul, on our energy, despite it all, there are so many people whom we can actually look up to. This idea of Black excellence. Black excellence happens in the US, not because of what we were promised or other people are promised, the American dream. It happened despite of it, right? It happens, in fact, under the American nightmare for most Black people. So what is it about Black people that makes it possible that although there are many that slip through the cracks and we lose our brothers and sisters to this, but if we just stay the course and not given to all this, I call them, to all the spiritual murderers who makes it their, I don't know, their daily job to havoc harm on people like us, what the more we are faced with this kind of attacks, the stronger we become, right? Because it provides us with resilience. So let's talk about identity capital. You know, let's talk about race. What is Black? Who are Black people? Who are African Americans? Despite all the generational trauma African Americans and Africans we experience through colonialism and our ancestors being taken forcibly from our homes. Those people are not just ordinary people. They were the chiefs, the strong ones. So that Africans also experienced the reverse cycle of slavery because we lost so many of our people who could have done a lot had they stayed in Africa. In the same way, due to slavery and the continued racism against African Americans, there has been a lot of suffering, but at the same time, that actually makes us stronger because, like they said, um, go a gold becomes only a gold when it goes through fire, right? So literally, we become stronger because we went. I'm not saying that, oh, this is good for us. No, but that we know that it won't go away. So what we need instead is like, okay, we are facing it, but we are getting better for it. So so let's talk about um, Black excellence, Black joy. Uh, like when a Black person smiles, it lights up a room. We see Black people being very compassionate, unlike many other people, because normally compassion comes from sometimes from the ability to put oneself in others person's shoes, and it means that you kind of relate to their sufferings because probably you have gone through similar circumstances. So one thing is like one of our identity capital is because we have gone through a lot, it allows us to be a good teachers, good storytellers. It allows us to be kind. Also, I know it's not talked much, but when we look at, let's say, I'm going to be blunt here. When we look at white culture, it's based on what is called individualistic. It's based on the individual, right? But when we look at, for example, the rest of the world, including Africa, Asia, and all that, it's a collectivist society. So this idea, like sometimes, oh, Black moms are very strict towards their children. Yes, we are. We can even chastise them or be, sometimes, okay, I have stopped doing that, but back home I used to like maybe pinch their arm when I'm angry with my sons, or just like give them a slap on their backside and all that. This is not done from a place of hate, but rather from a place of love, because discipline is part of, being raised well. And things like that, giving respect to elders, those are the things we also value in collectivist society. It's automatic, taking care of others. And in a way, one of our identity capital is I think, because of all the trauma and suffering we went through as a race, we kind of tend to be givers rather than takers. We normally give rather than take away. And that sense of entitlement and privilege that is taken for granted because they are not available, we also are full of appreciative when we have those kind of things in few instances. So the culture, another area of identity capital is to look at things like, what are my personal traits? Do I have empathy? I think that's one area also of blacks as a race have in abundance of, that we carry empathy with us, because most of the time we don't want what we went through for others, and that makes us empathetic people. And also, because we are always value our work effort, our opinions are devalued, we do double the work, thrice the work. And the more we work, the harder we work, the better we get, as long as we take care of not to exhaust ourselves or we get burnt out in the end. So recognizing our unique qualities and seeing them as those unique qualities, those same qualities that are devalued by the system, the racial systemic world we live in, and translating them and converting them into assets while achieving our goals. So yeah, I I spoke a lot. Can we just take a moment? You could either type in the chat, or we could just talk about, like, what do you think is to you a unique quality that is not seen as an asset, but should be seen an asset, or you take with you, you keep with you in order to achieve our goals? What are those?
Can you repeat that question for me?
Oh, sorry. So what I was saying is, like, we all carry qualities specific to us, unique quality. The unique quality you have based on your race that you think is an asset, and that it is part of your identity capital. Self-control. Yeah, collaborator. It's so true. Strategist. Yeah. Tenacity. Tenacity, yes. Being persistent and determined, because they say we fall we fall 7 times and rise up on 8. We do it again and again and again. And it's easy among us to collaborate, right? Because we value the others. Like, I think it's in our nature to value others. Self-control, yes, because we are always being judged, right? We know we are judged all the time. So we need to develop that skill, that the tone we use, because yeah, those micro insults will be thrown at us. Oh, yeah, there you go, the Black angry woman. Do you know that there was a time when I told, like, those people, I called them the gatekeepers, the ones who are like the cashiers, or uh, someone, at the retail shops and all that. And whenever they say, like, I realize my tone might be changing, so I tell myself and tell them that, oh yeah, you must be thinking that I am raising my voice. Yeah, I am raising my voice because I am upset. What you did harm me. So you know what? I'm going to be the angry Black woman who's also Karen. Would you call your manager, please? So it's like, like turning their false narrative into a positive, and I use a lot of humor dealing with people, those kind of people. Sometimes we are good at making fun or using our humor to deal with this instance of microaggression, right? Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, as Tanisha said, I work with the same race people, and they can be very insulting at times. It is so true. Sometimes we tend to be very, very judgmental of our own people because we expect a lot from them, maybe that we expect a lot of understanding from them. We assume those expectations. We come in with an expectation that makes us more less sympathetic, and um, unfortunately, that's the truth. And really, this happens in every kind of race. I mean, have you seen how white people are bad to each other? They they are the most judgmental people to each other. If you leave them to themselves, it's only when they are interacting with people like us who are different to them, they gang up or they support each other. But among their own, no. So it's, in a way, it's human nature, but that's the need. There is a need for us to be aware that it's not only white people who can be an ally to us, it's us also. We need to support each other. We need to back up each other. I mean, the whole system of white supremacy is based on supporting each other at a disadvantage to others, right? They, they are given the whole trust, trustship. Everything is based on generational wealth, and white people always make sure that other white people get opportunities. Why don't we do the same? When I see another Black person, I make sure that she will know of that opportunity. Why can't we be biased in favor of our own people? Because really, one of the problem is that it's such a lonely place to be in this kind of settings. We are alone, right? We feel so alone. We are the only person, or no. The more of us are there, the more we can be stronger to combat that kind of aggression, right? Um, and then the post, Megan says about, post-traumatic slave syndrome. Yes, that's the intergenerational trauma African Americans carry with us. It's not even like when we spoke about generational. It's like it's as what? It's like it happened. We saw it when George Floyd was killed in daylight by a racist person. We saw it, and we were assuming that at some time, like, oh, did he do something wrong? We were questioning sometimes, right? And we carry that slave syndrome that, oh, they are the masters. They seem to be doing so well in today's world, so we need to be subservient to them sometimes. You know, they say oppression works at its best when the oppressed accept their oppression, when we internalized what we have been told repeatedly, those things that they tell us repeatedly through the media, the history, and all that. And it's part of the propaganda. We become we willingly give our consent to those false narratives. Yeah. So, Megan, can you? Yeah, somebody, Tanisha has said, like, could you please tell us more about that? I would love to hear that too. Megan, you are there? Great. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I'm getting ready for a 2 o'clock, but
Oh, yeah, we are almost done. Yeah.
The post-traumatic slave syndrome actually has this intra and intra-racism that people reflect. It's a scarcity mindset. So when many African Americans come to power, they do a few things. They secure themselves and their family, and then they eliminate every competition. And so they see everybody else as a threat. It's like crabs in a barrel. We push each other's back down because in case you come up to Nisha, it might threaten my ability to be the team lead. And so we have this scarcity mindset. We oppose each other. There's black and black violence. All of these things, are part of some of the symptoms of post-traumatic slave syndrome. We don't believe in ourselves. We denigrate each other. The list goes on. And this is some of Joy DeGruya's work. If you haven't had a chance
yeah.
So So when I work, because I do a work with African Americans here at the CDC, I tend to get worse treatment from them than a white person or somebody from Asian origin, because I have 4 or 5 stripes against me. I'm Black, I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman, I'm not an American, and I have an accent. And so
Yeah.
we get that sort of people looking down on us, and you're assumed. I mean, I live in microaggression soup, although my job is to reduce that as a DEIAB consultant. But the post-traumatic slave syndrome is continuing to play into the Black and Black interactions in this country, because we don't like each other. Because of that, we feel threatened by each other. So I just wanted to say that. I'm sorry. I just put a comment in the chat. So email me, Dr. Wilson, if you'd like to talk more. And thank you so much, Emra.
Thank you, Megan. That's so useful. Yeah, it's so true what you said. Yeah, we because of scarcity, we think that there isn't enough resources available to share, and we and in the same way how women looked at each other, right? So whenever a marginalized group are given some opportunity and there aren't many available, so we kind of tend that, oh my God, I need to guard this for myself because I cannot share it with you, and that makes us not an ally to our own people, rather an adversary or a competitor. And that's how racism really works best. That's how they sustain the system to continue, because let's have those people down there in the racial hierarchy fighting over the small opportunity that are available, so that their attention wouldn't be directed towards the real problem, that the few get entitled, the few get privileged. And I think we are almost, we only have 3 hours, 3 minutes till the end of our sessions. If you have a quick question or anything, any comment, I would love to hear it. Thank you. Anyone? All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. And before we leave, just want to say again, thank you. And as you finish completing your doctorate, good luck at every step of the
Thank you.
phase.
Thank
And
you.
just want to remind everyone about the next workshop coming up next week, the 27th, and it's going to be entitled What They Didn't Teach You. And that's presented by Dr. Simone Taylor at 12 p.m. Eastern. So I'd love to see everybody back again next week. And thanks everybody again.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.